Hello Steph, and welcome to spring, or May as it is. The world's starting to change colour properly, so all the flowers are coming out. I've had a really good trip to Ludge Church, which I'll show you in a moment. And I've also decided to pop on just the basic stew recipe that I use just to make what I take out in my flask when I'm going on my trips out and enjoying myself. So yes, you can see that the cows are out drinking in the canal, which was an interesting sight to see. The moor hens are building their nests. The English bluebells have come out and got that droop and that lovely violet colour. And the mallard ducklings are all out trying to get something to eat and having a bit of fun. Since we last spoke, most of my time has been in the Peak District this time rather than Wales, but I am hoping to get there soon. I'm missing the seaside at the very least. So I suppose that the most interesting place that I've been to recently is Ludge Church, which is a rock formation in the Peak District, and it's a very serene and quiet place. So it starts at Gradbatch Mill, which is used as a wedding venue, and we parked at the top where there was a lovely lady whose husband was making some cookies for us all to buy. So we parked there, came down past Gradbatch Mill, walked along the well laid out paths, which soon become quite rugged when you start to walk up the sort of the hills and the foresty bit that takes you up to Ludge Church. You do have to watch your footing, and in some places it does have that church or cathedral-like feel to it in the way that the walls rise. There's lots of different terrain here, and some parts are boarded, so you get lots of different sounds of where your feet are going, as well as lots of lovely views. Coming out of Ludge Church, you can also walk along the Roaches, which is what my partner and I did. And we chose one of the rocks to sit and have our picnic on together, looking out over the vista towards Cheshire. And then we took the path down and came home, which is where I now take you to my kitchen. So here we are back in the kitchen that time forsook, and today I thought I'd show you how to make the stew that I do. I'm really lazy, so I don't use any scales. I prefer to do things by volume. I'm really clumsy, so scales and things I can break really easy. So when I do measure things, I tend to measure things by cups or handfuls, or just the sizes that you get of vegetables and things as they should be in the shops. So I've got the bowls here to show you what's in each of the different things, and then basically we just lob them all into the slow cooker. So here we've got three good sized baking potatoes that have been chopped into sort of inch cube chunks. The same for about 4 large carrots. We've got just a standard bag of green beans that you get from, in this case, Tesco. So just the smallest bag's about that big. 1 white onion and 2 celery. In here, we've just got some Marks and Spencer's chicken seasoning because I've been incredibly lazy. Under here, we've got about a tablespoon and a bit of the stuff that you can use to make a stock with, powdered vegetable stock. Some savoury, some parsley here and some sage, just to give it some flavour and hopefully push it in the direction of being a bit chickeny. And here, these are dried shiitake mushrooms just from Grape Tree. So it's half a bag of those, which is roughly about a cup. I've whizzed them up a little bit as well in the chopper just to break them down a bit because they're a bit big if you're putting them into a flask later on. And here is the, I suppose, human kibble is what you could call it. So this is basically dried tofu, I suppose. And when you rehydrate it, instead of being soft, it's actually quite meaty. So that's what adds the meaty texture to the stew overall. So in the slow cooker, there is about half a kettle of hot water. So my kettle is 1.7 litres just in there. So what we need to do first is just bring some of the flavours together and do a little bit of rehydrating. So the first thing that's going to go in there are the mushrooms. Again, these add that meaty umami type flavour. So we'll pop those in there. And whilst we're doing that as well, we'll just rehydrate and pop in all the spices and give it a good stir. There we go. And put that together. And just let you see a little bit more of that. I'll move this in. So that's just been rehydrating in there for some minutes now, about 5 minutes, and that's coming on okay, all mixed together. So we really want the kibbles, if you like, to be absorbing all of that flavour. So they're going to go in next. And for this, you want about 2 of these, so 2 cups really. There's 1. 2. And you can hear them popping a little bit. I don't know whether this will pick it up, just absorbing all of those flavours. And just give them a good mix in. And again, we'll leave those for say 5 minutes or so, just to get those flavours in there. So just while that's rehydrating and absorbing all of those flavours, for those of you who are a bit more observant, you might have noticed that there's a few plants or things that appear to be plants in the kitchen, but actually it's just a way of keeping things fresher for longer. When there's only one of you, it's quite hard when you're buying big bunches of things, because that's how they come, to keep them lasting long enough. So there's a few things that I do to help things store a bit longer. So for some of the root veggies, this is actually from the fridge, so you wouldn't have seen this. Have one of these plastic containers, which probably isn't the best thing for the environment, but it was what I had at the time. And in here is where I'll put my parsnips and carrots, but wrapping them in a towel. So they do keep moist and they keep firm, but it's just enough so that they don't become mouldy and they last absolutely ages like this. So they're kept in the fridge like that. And then there are other things which you can just keep around and about. So for celery, if you keep this in the fridge, it starts to go off in the ends and it goes a bit gelatinous, for the lack of a better word. So the best way I found to keep that fresh is just a mug with a bit of water in the bottom, keep that in there, and you'll notice this one started to grow some leaves, but it's still firm. So it's really firm and flavourful celery, and it stays that way for quite some time. So I think you can keep that going for a couple of weeks at least. And then you've got things like salad onions, or spring onions as I was taught to call them. You're not really supposed to let them flower, but I quite like the flowers on these, so I've let them grow. And all you do is just snip the green bits as you want them. And you can use the whole thing down to the bottom as well. But when you get them, essentially, they're still living. Just plonk them in a jar of water, feed them occasionally, and then you've sort of got infinite chives, basically, or spring onions from that. And rather than buying fertiliser for them, what I do is cut up a banana skin, chop it into small pieces, pop it into a jar of water, and it looks fairly unpleasant, but the plants like it. It doesn't particularly smell of anything either, which I was quite surprised at. But the nutrients in here, especially with it being such a small jar, I can just keep topping it up for ages until it starts to go fairly clear when it's got nothing in it, in which case it can go in the compost bin. But this basically becomes the fertiliser, so I'll put sort of a tablespoon of that into a jar that's roughly the same size as this, fill it with water, and then just go around and feed either the plants that are in the kitchen that I'm using as food, or alternatively I'll just feed the other plants that are in the house as well. Just make sure if you are going to do this that you leave the lid off slightly, so you don't want to fasten it all the way down because there's bacteria in here that are fermenting everything and off-gassing, and as a result your jar will fill up and it will get a lot of pressure in it, which is dangerous. So just leave the lid sort of loosely screwed to the top so this won't fall off, but at the same time the gases can be exchanged. So that's just one of the ways that I keep my kitchen going and food for long enough and trying to reduce my food waste. So that being said, let's get back to the slow cooker. So here we are again. It's just been about 5 minutes. So as you can see, that's rehydrated quite nicely. And now we'll just dump everything else in. So we'll pop in the onion. Break that up and give it over to the stir. Again, I've just had some nice flavour in there as well. And pop in the root vegetables. And then we've got the green beans and celery. Give that a bit of a mix. Whoops. There we go. And we'll now fill this with water so that it just comes to the top of where the vegetables are. I think that's about enough. Good stir. Might pop a bit more in actually. And there we go. And we'll leave this on low for about 4 hours. So when it comes out, that's going to be quite a thin stew, so it's more a boiled vegetable broth, I suppose. So if you want to thicken it up, just get some flour, so anywhere between 1/4 cup and 1/2 cup. Pop some gravy browning in it, so perhaps a tablespoon or so. Mix it together with some boiling water, which will give you quite a thick paste, and then chuck that in and stir it up, and that's what will thicken your actual stew up as well, if you prefer it to be a bit more gloopy, which I do, so that's what I'll be doing with this. So 4 hours turned into nearly 10 hours, so it's good that it was on low. It's done very nicely, and it'll just be a little bit thicker than when I left it, or what I expected it to be really already, so it should be very nice. So let's have a look at it now. Oh, lovely. And it smells absolutely gorgeous. So let's add some flour and some gravy browning to this, just to make it a little bit richer. So again, not an exact science, we'll just pop in about 1/4 of, or maybe even 1/8 cup of flour, a drizzle of browning, that's probably about a tablespoon, and then we'll get some hot water in there and whisk it all up. As you can see, you'll have a paste. And then we can drop that into the stew. And that'll just give it again a bit more of a warmer flavour, a little bit more of a salty character, and generally just a little bit more meaty. Make sure you give it a good stir, otherwise you'll end up with lumps. and it also thickens up a touch as it cools as well. And since I've come back from a surprise dinner out with my partner, I'm just going to pop this into some plastic containers, which will fill up between 6 and 8, and then that can go in the freezer. Well, some will go in the fridge because I'll have some tomorrow, but the rest will go in the freezer, and then I can just pick them out the day before, and then that's dinner sorted. So this was a little bit of a different take, with a bit of food in there as well on how it's made. So I suppose I'll look forward to perhaps showing off some different recipes in the future as well. All the recipes, by the way, that I do are either from books or the things that I've seen online and just adapted in some way or other to suit my taste. So I'm by no means a chef that knows everything about what they're doing. It's just copying and trying a few things and switching a few things around to make them taste how I want them to, really. So I'm looking forward to hopefully being up the coast very soon and perhaps showing you some of those adventures. And yes, thank you very much for watching.